Hey, and welcome back to the Git Hip Cast, episode 6, If Not Dead. Eat, sleep, code, and repeat. All right, and my guests today are, we'll go clockwise on my screen here. We have Jonny. Say hello, Jonny.
Hello.
We have Alex. Say hello, Alex.
Hi.
And we have Anthony. Say hello, Anthony.
Hi, everyone.
All right, so as you know, the Git Hip Cast is all about the intersection of technology and culture, and it's been a while since our last podcast. And today we're going to talk about lots of different things, and I think we have a great panel of guests. I like to call them the new kingmakers. For those unfamiliar with what that means, there's a great book I'll put in the show notes called The New Kingmakers. It's all about how developers are taking over the world. And these guys are taking over the team here and really kind of getting ready to set us up for massive success in 2022. So wanted to get them on the podcast and get their opinion on some stuff, drill down, get to know them a little better, get the team to know them a little better. And what better way to do it than on a podcast we're going to share with the internet. All right, so as you guys know, this is as I briefed you, this is a 1 hour podcast, so we'll try to keep it to 1 hour. Sometimes we go a little over. It depends on how into things we get. And what's interesting is no one on this panel has been here longer than a year. And some people, and as you'll find out, have been here a couple of days, which I think will give us a great set of varied perspectives on things, which is great. All right, so without further ado, let's get started. And to keep some order here, I'll call you guys by name, and you can kind of answer the questions as we go to kind of keep us on track. And I'll interject with some probing questions as we go around. So, Jonny, why don't you tell us how long you've been here?
I've been here since July. So
right,
that's
cool.
like under 5 months.
All right. And how about you, Alex?
I've been here for 3 days.
All right.
Starting on Wednesday. Yeah.
How have those 3 days been?
Really nice, actually. I've learned a lot, surprisingly super fast, especially today. Yeah.
All right, cool. And how about you, Anthony?
I've been here since the beginning of February.
Chiseled veteran. All right. All right. So I'll change the order up a little bit as we go. So, Alex, what do you think about the title of this podcast?
It's very hip.
Right.
Right to the point. I mean, I like it. Get hip. When I first read it was like committing to this. So I was like, okay, it's very interesting. No, I like it.
How about the episode title?
Where can I see the episode title?
It's If Not Dead, Eat, Sleep, Code, Repeat.
Okay, that's right. I laughed at that initially because that's literally what we've been doing. Well, at least for me throughout school, just repeat the cycle 24/7.
Right.
Waking up studying, going to bed studying. So yeah, I thought it was hilarious and on brand.
All right. How about you, Anthony?
The first thing I thought of was that I remember you actually wearing a shirt that said that. And so I know you own a shirt with that.
I do. I got my Occupy Mars shirt on today.
Right.
Because if we're going to occupy something, it should change the world, the universe even. Not just the world, right? Anyone can change a city. It's child's play.
Yeah.
How about you, Jonny?
I think it's really accurate. I thought it was really funny. Although I find it redundant that we have repeat inside the while loop, which is just
I love it.
I
love it.
I just couldn't help but notice that.
Yeah, cool. I like it. Be critical. All right. All right. So maybe one that you guys haven't seen, because I just sort of added some questions that we could get more authenticity on. All right. So, Anthony, risk taker or risk mitigator?
I usually, like, in relation to just how I work or how I am as a person.
let's go with how you are as a person, and then what do you think? Let's go with how you are as a person. There's a follow-up question, so we'll dig in a little deeper. But let's go with how you are as a person.
Yeah, I usually do, I'm a risk mitigator. So I will just basically think of like some negative outcomes and kind of try to like avoid them. And then there's sometimes, especially for like if, I'm like in like a, like around my friends, I'm like more of a risk taker for like when it comes to jokes or anything like that. And yeah, I would say that's just about my person.
Okay.
Those
How
two things.
about you, Johnny?
I'm hands down a risk mitigator. I think anyone who knows me, not a risk taker.
All right. How about you, Alex?
I am a risk taker. I
All
like
right.
to just jump the gun.
All right. All right. Cool. I'm definitely a risk mitigator. There's a great book called The 4 Hour Work Week. It's written by this guy Tim Ferriss, and Tim Ferriss has this. He has this thing. He's a really smart guy. He's a serial entrepreneur. He's done really well for himself, but he also has a lot of like talks. In general, a lot of his books talk about his like mental struggles with mental health in general, and he has this thing he calls fear setting, and I'm definitely a fear setter. Like instead of setting goals, I try to think about the worst possible outcome. And once I determine what the worst possible outcome is, I make a decision on whether that's the direction I'm going in or not. But I won't do that till I fully plan the worst possible outcome. But for some people it works really well. I think fear setting, but for other people it slows them down. For you, Alex, it probably would maybe not be the right move since you're already naturally a risk taker. All right, let's go in reverse order. Alex, who do you think is more celebrated, risk takers or risk mitigators?
Oof. It depends on the event or the context of it.
Let's go with
Mhm.
worldwide humanity. Who does humanity celebrate more, risk takers or risk mitigators?
Oof. I'd say risk mitigators, probably because a lot of people don't want to find themselves in a position where uh, they can roll back or have some negative impact. So they like to play it safe. But personally, I just go for it.
Okay, but that's I think you're pointing out what the preponderance of society is, right? Which is probably more risk mitigators than there are risk takers.
Mm-hmm.
But who does society celebrate? The takers or the mitigators? I don't know any celebrated mitigators, by the way.
I guess the risk takers, I suppose.
Yeah, 100%.
Somebody has to do the risk it all.
All right.
So.
So let's Anthony, do we all agree that risk takers are probably more celebrated than risk mitigators?
Yeah.
I would say
All right.
so. Yeah.
All right. So if we all agree with that, like Anthony, do you think there is do you think there's a survivorship bias in terms of the celebrated? Like no one talks about the risk takers who failed. So like we don't really know. So isn't there like a giant survivorship bias in terms of like why we celebrate the takers? Because there are great stories to tell. Like this person just threw caution to the wind and they won.
Yeah, the first place my mind goes to is in relation to the question is like music, because when you have an artist that's brand new, they have a really unique sound, and that's kind of like the risk they take. And then when they get famous or they get more popular, that's the risk taken was successful, and they benefited from that, and they get more popular, and that's just where my head was going.
Interesting. Do they become? Oh, I like the music analogy. Do they become? Because my thought is great music created by risk takers, eventually transforms into great musicians who try to mitigate risk. Do you feel that way? Do you feel like music the longer the band's around, the more they try to hold on, and the more commercialized the music gets, the weaker it gets a little bit?
I think it depends on the artist. Some I would say, stay true to themselves, and they're not trying to go for that. I might actually, to give an example, it went to video games, and one of the games that came up was Minecraft, and the creator of that, Notch, he kind of like eventually stepped away from it when it was getting popular. So, yeah, I guess it just depends on the artist, and like on like the person who took the risk.
Oh, cool. All right. Moving along. Jonny, tell us a little bit about your background.
I mean, it's funny. So I actually started in college as an electrical engineer, trying to major in electrical engineer, and then I took a fundamentals like computer science course because I needed to know some basics of programming. And I think from then on, like I think it just took off. Like I just realized soon enough, like this is it for me. All this like playing with like electrical breadboards and putting in wires are fun and all, but this wasn't it.
Yeah.
And I think from there it was just skyrocketed and just learning all about programming. And then I graduated and I jumped right into my first job here.
Cool.
Yeah.
How about you, Anthony?
Sorry, what was the question?
Give us a little bit about your background.
Oh, my background. Yeah. So yeah, I went to Virginia Tech, and kind of a similar story too. At first, when I was there, I was in computer engineering, so I was also fiddling around with the breadboard, making some circuits, manipulating voltages to produce an outcome. And like that was really interesting. And then I switched over to computer science, and I got really into coding. I was into coding before I even went to tech. In high school, I took AP comp sci. It was the first year they offered it, and I was a senior. So it's crazy how that timing worked out. But yeah, I graduated, and then I networked, and now I'm here.
All right. How about you, Alex?
Well, I have a different story, I guess. I guess everybody else grew up as a gamer, I assume. And I was very curious about making video games. And so I just started learning Python as a teenager, and I wanted to pursue it. And so since then, I've been pursuing it, and I work with it. So it's kind of nice.
All right, cool. All right, we're going to reverse the order here. Alex, tell us something about yourself that people would be surprised to know about you.
I mean, besides what I've already told you guys, surprised. I don't, that's hard. Other than being a drag queen, who knows? Because when I perform, people see me very bubbly, very energetic, and they go, "Oh, what are you doing the day?" I'm like, "Oh, I do this." They go, "What?" They go, "It doesn't sound like you." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm very jumping out in the scene, I'm everywhere." But at home, I'm very introvert, and outside of the house, I'm an extrovert. So I guess I have to stick to that because I can't think of anything right off the bat. But I guess being a drag queen.
All right. How about you, Anthony?
Yeah, so I guess depending on how long you've known me, I would say that I was a huge Lego fanatic when I was a kid growing up, and I have hundreds and hundreds of Lego sets. And recently, over like a few summers ago, they got pretty old, and after moving out of a house, they all got destroyed. So I went through a process of like cleaning them all up, and like I soaked them in like soap, and like rinsed them and dried them and put them in bins and like labeled them all. I'll have to send a picture, but that was a huge project that I did, which was really cool.
You have any Mindstorms?
No, I do not actually.
Yeah,
Closest thing to that is any of the electronic components that would go into some of them, like have like a Lego carousel and it would like rotate. That one was really cool.
cool. How about
Yeah.
you, Johnny?
I think for as someone who has followed the code eat and sleep 24/7, I guess someone would find it surprising if that I also do martial arts. I am like an instructor at a Vietnamese martial arts that I
Cool.
do on the weekends.
Cool. Yeah, no one's surprised about it. I don't surprise anyone. It's like I have zero surprising skills. It's like all right. So Johnny, how'd you end up here professionally? What was the path like after you graduated? How'd you get here?
I mean, I was just grinding, just resume and application, resume, application, resume, application. Pretty sure everyone here can agree. And I think there was actually, when I got the offer here, I actually had this other offer at another location. It wasn't actually complete offered yet, but we was going through the process. But I think like just hearing about this opportunity, I just couldn't turn it down. I couldn't wait for the other opportunity. But definitely just like the grind. And I think it was really fortunate that it was just like right after school too. So graduated college and then just like grind for this position.
Cool. How about you, Anthony?
Yeah, so I basically networked. My fiance's mother is actually friends with one of your friends, Richard. So I networked with him, and eventually we were able to set something up, and we interviewed, and now I'm here.
Cool. How about you, Alex?
Similar to Johnny, I was grinding as well, and eventually I received a message to interview. And so I went through the process. I thoroughly enjoyed the process, more than any other process I've had. And then the fact that we're working with Python, that just got me excited. So, yeah.
Cool. All right,
Yeah,
Anthony. Go ahead, Johnny.
Oh no, I was just gonna say I'm so like after that whole grind, I'm just tired of seeing anything remotely close to like LinkedIn, Indeed, Glassdoor, all of these websites. Like,
Oh,
no, please
man.
just remove them from like these links and ads.
Literally,
I'm tired. I'm
Yeah, yeah.
tired.
all
guys
the
are good.
emails.
You guys are going to create your own. Listen, you're going to get to a point in your career where you're never going to need to hit Indeed or LinkedIn again. You guys are on that trajectory, so that's all good. Tell us a little, like Anthony, why don't you tell us a little bit about like some of the projects you've been working on?
Yeah, so I actually just finished a big one for a customer, and it basically would sync two of their network monitoring systems and our own database, and it would sync all across all of those services, all of their devices on the network monitoring systems. And I ran it last night. It went really well. And it was just a really satisfying thing. It took a lot of time and a lot of effort and working with coworkers to get everything ready and like a lot of testing. And it was just it was great. Once last night, I stayed up late. Once I saw the log that the script was generating. It was all successful. I was like, very
What
nice.
was it? What was the biggest? What was like? How much efficiency do you think that piece of code like will drive into the business?
I think it's really good. It's going to add a lot of efficiency just because like there's going to be a lot less hands-on with syncing devices names and recording their names and their MAC addresses and all of that. Like that, it's one step closer to automating that process and to kind of like have our hands like off of it a little bit, so then we could focus on more important things. And we're just gonna keep going along with that ideology, and hopefully we'll be able to make it more hands off.
Cool. You guys know what an Etch A Sketch is?
Yes.
Is that the two?
Yeah. Do you have one of those as a
Yeah.
kid?
No.
I did for a little bit.
Didn't I never had
Oh,
one,
the
but it's
sketching
like I was
thing. Oh, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
I
Okay.
don't think I was
Yeah,
ever talented enough to use it though. It's like
yeah. Well, I was
Bad
like,
that.
I always like credit the Etch A Sketch, which was invented by like a French inventor, with like my love of computers, because it was like literally like the first creative toy I ever had, where you could take the Etch A Sketch. Your drawings always sucked because like, how do you make drawings when you can only make like right angles? Like
Yeah.
trying to coordinate like making a squiggly line or a diagonal was like extremely difficult. But if you screwed up, you could turn it upside down, shake it, and like start all over again, right? It was like the first version of like not having a piece of paper that you crumbled up and like start over again. It's like a reusable thing. And like I always thought about, the great part about a computer, if you kind of take it back to like when you first, I think people like develop natural trajectory in life, and like there's always something, like I always think like that probably kind of set me on that path. Like I'm not really a creative person. I love music, but I'm not very musically inclined. um but I love the idea of being able to like infinitely test things with like no consequence, right? Like there was never a consequence to like screwing up on the Etch A Sketch. You just turned it over, shook it, started over. Like there was no waste, there was no nothing. And I always think about computers the same way. Like you can try things as many as you want. And there's zero waste. Like there's no like even less than the Etch A Sketch, because you never really need to start over from scratch. So like yeah, I would, to me that's like I made, like I did a presentation a while ago and I made that connection, and I think somebody has something like that before they ever touched a computer. There was something that kind of set them on that path. Um, Jonny, what have you been working on here? Like what like I know you worked on a few projects, but like just tell us about one.
I think my favorite one was my first project. It was a one that would just gather data for power outages. I think that was really cool and really helpful when you put it that way too. So like it would go out and gather these lists of outages that based off of a kind of a reporting of like one of the monitoring systems that say like, oh, there's a possibility this might be out. So let's go see if and someone would have to manually go out and check it. But with the project I was working on, it would be able to do that automatically, just gather the data and put it back where it needs to be seen. And I think that was like a really cool project that I worked on.
What was the biggest hurdle you had in that project?
The biggest hurdle. I think the biggest hurdle is just actually getting used to the, I guess, environment, just because Python was like actually a new language for me, somewhat new at the time. And so just learning from scratch, but then also learning how like these the libraries that were provided, and how to really use it like efficiently. And I think also a big thing with Python is like there's this term that they use called Pythonic way of doing things. And it's just like I always end up in this like rabbit hole of like, okay, so you can actually do this in one line. Let me figure out how to do this also in one line, and then do
Right.
this in one line. You just go down this rabbit hole trying to find the most efficient way to do this. And it's
Yeah.
just like I gotta stop myself.
Yeah. Sometimes good is good enough.
Yeah.
All right, Alex, I'm not going to ask you this question since you just started. Like, and nobody out in podcast land wants to hear about how awesome your HR paperwork was. So, all right. So, I will ask this one though. Like, since Alex, this is what, day 3, day 4,
Yep.
day 3.
Yep.
All right. So, since really you're in day 3, I know you live one place and you're moving somewhere else. Like, what are your thoughts on remote work and like, starting a new job? You got out of school, even during COVID, school's been like, it's a social place, right? Like people are there, and like now you're entering the professional world. You live in one place, you're moving to a new place, and you'll be remote from pretty much the bulk of your coworkers. So what are your thoughts on that, kind of just without really experiencing it thus far? Like, what are you thinking about it? Like,
Yeah, well, I mean, personally, I had a feeling there was a high chance I was going to move upon graduating. So I was looking for a position that would be remote. Throughout my entire life, I've done everything online, and throughout school, I actually preferred online. So when the pandemic hit, and we went online, through Zoom and so on, my grades improved. Like I was more disciplined, compared to having to go to class, sweating with a lot of people. You can barely hear the teacher with 300 students in the class. So my thoughts with remote work is, for me at least, it's efficient. I like to be able to be in my own, space and have the freedom to just be anywhere. So
Very
it's
cool.
nice because I can work anywhere and I'm not restricted to be in one location. And that's very helpful for many reasons, because in case I have an emergency, I can make it work. Of course, it's remote, so I would have to carry the laptop, which is fine. But I've worked in an office before, and that just got a little tiring, all the commuting and then dressing up the entire time. But overall, this is just up my alley. So like I really enjoy remote work and I enjoy remote learning. And since we are tech, that's kind of my headspace. Being home as an introvert, I just do everything online. So yeah, I mean, I think for the majority of people now, I think it's very beneficial, especially with people with children. I'm noticing a huge spike in people who are looking for specifically remote jobs, to be around their families a lot more. And I have friends who have kids, and they're currently remote, who have never experienced this before since the pandemic, and they're loving it. They're thriving. They're literally succeeding a lot more than they would in person, because they'd be very tired waking up early, having to drive and come back, pick up the kids from daycare and so on. And now they're like at home with the kids, having to save up. They get to save up more money. So remote work has its pros and cons. But for me personally, there's more pros than cons. So yeah.
All right, cool. That's good. Good. Anthony, I'm going to save you to last since you've actually had some human interaction. Jonny, we'll go to you next. It's 5 months. You've been sequestered in that same room. How's it been?
At least I have the lights on now. Okay, it's no just dark.
I preferred it when it looked like Apocalypse Now. Like it was. But what's it been like? How's the collaboration been since you've been really collaborating purely remotely? Like, how do you feel like you've gotten engaged with the team and stuff?
I think, I guess much in the same way that Alex has brought up, there's like the same pros and cons too, where like I think with collaboration, everything's really efficient. We have these calendars, and then like you meet up. As soon as you meet up, everyone's there. Calls over, you're done, and you continue back on your track. And so it really is a cycle of like eat, sleep, and code, and just like repeat meetings and stuff like that. But I think I kind of also miss some of that human interactions too, just because like imagining like going to like a personal, I would imagine, I've actually been in an actual personal meeting, but I would imagine that you'd have the time to walk there and the time to socialize before and after the meeting. After you walk out of the meeting, you have time to also socialize then as well. I think it just has like more room for opportunity to just further like explore things either with work or just personally, that I definitely miss.
All right. How about you, Anthony? What's it been like for you?
It's been really good. I've been able to start work back in February, and I was still with my dad at the time. So I worked that whole month in my room at my dad's house, and it kind of gave me the capability to save a little more money and kind of move out. I moved out in March with my fiance, and we've been here, and I've just been able to, hang out, save money. I could kind of it's really nice with the flexibility, because I was in an office too when I had my internship in, I believe, summer of 2019, and the office was 50 minutes away, so I would have to commute. That's basically 2 hours out of my day. So I save time. I have more time to do things in my day. which I really like. And I think it's beneficial for everyone too to have a little extra time in their day, because they could use that time, to pursue their interests, or, spend time with friends and family. And I think that's really important.
Yeah, I think those are all great points. I was telling Alex the other day that my perspective on this, like I think
Oh,
I think we use this term. Oh, nice. We use this term, the new normal, but I'm not really like too much of a fan of it. I kind of feel like normal's normal. Like there's nothing new about it. Like there's always a new normal. It's like called tomorrow. Um, and I kind of think of, especially the work that we do, like you're most productive when you hit like a state of flow where like you're in the groove, and you don't want to get up and commute home. You don't like that sometimes happens. Like I don't know, for me it happens all the time. Like I was telling Alex, like sometimes you set a 5,000 piece puzzle box on the table and you go to bed, and you lay in bed all night restless, and the minute the sun comes up you run downstairs because you like can't wait to start working on the puzzle. Like you couldn't sleep, like you just went to sleep because it was just what you're supposed to do, but like you're dying to get out of bed, and once you sit down at that puzzle you don't want to get up till you're done. So when you throw in all these outside variables like commuting and having to grab lunch and like not being able to walk 3 feet to your fridge and get something quick so you don't exit the state of flow, like it becomes disruptive from a productivity perspective. And I think I wrote this blog a while ago called the Introvert's Advantage, and I believe that COVID has been like this massive introvert advantage. So like quarantine has allowed every introvert to tap into like what they're naturally good at, which is hunkering down, focusing, being alone, and like achieving flow. And in the same way that there is a survivorship bias for risk takers, I think there is an extrovert bias in the world where people believe that you should like sitting in your house for a week is like horribly wrong, and like there's something wrong with you, and how can you do that? And I don't know. I just feel like you just want to get that 5,000 piece puzzle done, and that's like you're 100% focused on that. So you don't even think about all these other things that I think a lot of extroverts spend a lot of time thinking about because they tend to be interrupt driven, and they're good at time slicing their time between things. So I don't know. I sort of feel like I think it's been a great wake up call because we're already on the path, right? I think this has just allowed us to accelerate a lot of really good things. I think people have more opportunity personally. Like Alex mentioned, it's good for people. People are changing the way they think about work-life balance, or harmony, as I prefer to call it, where they're willing to take a little less money if they don't have to commute. And like, there's just people are getting more realistic about how they want to live their life. And I think ultimately, if you are happy, you're more productive. If you're unhappy, you're just going through the motions, right? Like, and that becomes pretty obvious. So I think the goal here is to be happy, right? And happy and loving what you do makes you excel at it. So I think it's all great feedback. So, all right, next question. Start with you, Jonny. Do you think coding is more art or science, and why?
I want to say I have to say it's like a blend of both. I think like it takes a bit of like necessary science and like algorithms and like things in place for it to work. But then I think like um, with art is what really makes it like what it really is too. So I think like you can't really have one, I think, without the other for this one.
Okay, it's a fair answer. We'll come back to that on the next question. Go ahead, Anthony. You're up next.
If I had to choose one, I would say it's more of a science, specifically for software development. There's such a strong tie between computing and mathematics. And once you go into mathematics, there's a whole world of like, algorithms that can help us compute things that we need to compute to complete our objectives. And advancements in that field are advancements in computing. And so I think those two, the relationship there is so important. So I would say science is, if I had to choose just one, the really what it comes down to. But I am in agreement with Jonny. I do think that there's an element of both, which we can get to later.
Okay. How about you, Alex?
I mean, I also agree it's more science. But on the other hand, I do see it as art because it's my form of expressing what I want to showcase, whether that's like my style of art and so on. Because when it comes to coding, we run into a lot of bugs and we spend a lot of time trying to fix something and we break it. And once we actually complete it, it's like such a huge like a satisfaction, and you just get very happy about it, and you're proud of it. You just want to showcase that to other people. But of course, it is more science based. But for me, what got me into it is just the fun and the thrill of it. So it's a blend, but definitely art is involved to an extent, I'd say at least. Yeah.
Okay. Have you guys ever seen the Netflix culture deck?
No.
All right. For anyone, it's a pretty famous slide deck that Reed Hastings put together about the culture at Netflix, and it became legendary in Silicon Valley. And a lot's changed since it was first published, but there are a lot of really good things in there. It's a 129 slide deck, so we're not going to cover the whole deck, but there are a couple things that I kind of want to dig into. So in the deck, Reed Hastings has he makes one comment that in procedural work, the best are 2x better than the average. But in creative and inventive work, the best are 10x the average. So tying back into, is coding more art than science? Let's assume it's 80% science. But where does the real value come in to you as a coder? Is it in your mastery of the science or in your ability to express the art? We'll start with you, Jonny.
See, I think the ability to express in the art would definitely have to be for me. I mean, like, if you can just tie it in with how many like languages there are to code in, and like people are really like some are diehard fans for one or the other, and then, of course, like they have each one have their own benefits, like one's for like and different purposes too. But I think like when someone can do the same thing in one language and another, even if it's a little harder, but they still choose to do it in that language because they love it so much, I think that's in like the same way that it's really expressive. The way the code, the way the syntax is kind of where I believe.
How about you, Anthony?
Yeah, so I think when it comes to the art side of it, you could know so many different algorithms and so many different things on the science side, but when it comes to applying that and using them, I think that's where the artistic side comes in, like being able to creatively apply certain algorithms or logic and doing that way. I think that's where a lot of the art comes in. And like when you do something, there's multiple ways to do something for when it comes to coding, but doing something, really, really efficiently and really thinking about it, that's one way. That's one artistic view, is just, efficiency. Another artistic view that I like is trying to do a hybrid of efficiency and readability. So I'll use a lot of dictionaries to kind of like give the reader a kind of like a guide and to kind of really read the code. And I use a lot of comments. So like just really like having good readability, I think, is also another form of art for that.
How about you, Alex?
I mean, the way you phrased it had me think for a second, simply because when you're saying 80% science and the remaining being 20% art, the way I view programmers in general, I know they do it because they enjoy it, but there are a lot of people in the community who are doing it because they're trying to solve problems that are really complex, and it involves complex algorithms as well. And they really take pride into knowing all of that, and really just studying some really hardcore stuff. And uh, when it comes to the science of it, it, it's hard to say, because it's like when you work hard for something and you study really hard for it, you want to be able to talk about it with somebody who understands. So when it comes to the science of it, I think they want to interact with people who can communicate at their level. And coding is something that a lot of people don't understand. And so being able to articulate or speak on it with somebody who is also in the same mindset is very beneficial for everybody. But for me personally, I still side with artistic, because like Jonny and Anthony have mentioned, the syntax itself and commenting and so on, and having your own style of syntax, to me, it's very important, because you can not only tell what kind of programmer they are, but you can see their own way of style in coding in general. So it's hard to say, but I'd still say 50-50 for both, but I can see why it'd be 80% science. But
I was just using that as I think the idea is, if you've mastered Big O notation, like you're the best at it. You're either proficient or the best. Like, I don't know, what's the difference? You either know it or you don't know it, right? Like, so if you're the best, how much better can you be than someone who's proficient? 2x. 2x seems like a reasonable number. Like, you're twice as good as the person who understands it, but maybe isn't like the best at it. But if you take the application of Big O notation into your code, that's where the science becomes art, and your application of the science to whatever you're trying to create. And if you're a creator, then you're an artist, right? So the application of that science, like, I'm a Bob Ross fan. I don't know if anybody else is a Bob Ross fan, but if you're a Bob Ross fan, like, everybody knows, like, the primary colors, like how you get from the 3 primary colors to every other color, that's a science. Like, you can't argue, that's the science. How you take that and put it on the canvas to create something totally different, far more valuable than knowing how to mix the colors. So I think that's the art and science thing, right? It's like, you know, it's hard to be a scientist, no doubt. It's really, I remember being in grade school art class going, what am I gonna do with these 3 colors? Like, this seems like crazy. Why am I learning this? What applicability does it have to anything in life? It had none. Like, I learned nothing from it, but but I wasted an hour. I wasted an hour every day for like 3 years of my life. But you know, I do think there is like this piece of it that says, how do you, especially as you, like, you know, we're here trying to build a team and hire people, like, how do you hire people who could to go from, like, how do you assess that artistic side of someone, right? It's hard, really hard, right? It's only once you get to the applied science, right, as opposed to the theoretical science. And I guess maybe a better way to say it is, like, what's more important, theoretical science or applied science, which could probably be a whole nother podcast. But yeah, I think they were all great responses. All right, so here's the other one I wanted to delve in a little bit on. So in the same deck, Reed Hastings talks about prioritizing discovery over job security. I thought this was a really interesting one because you guys are new in your careers, And this is a delicate balancing act, even for somebody who's been doing this for 30 years, like me. Right? And what he says is many people love our culture and stay a long time. They thrive on excellence and candor and change. Some people, however, value job security over performance, and they just don't like our culture. So we'll start with you, Anthony. What do you think in terms of, now let me just frame the context a little bit before you answer, right? We've talked about art versus science, how important it is to be creative. Like, you guys have talked about your projects you've worked on and the value they've kind of delivered back. We know there's some creativity associated with that. Now I kind of want to get your feelings on, how important being inventive and creative and discovery is, when you contrast that with job security, right? What do you think's more important? Like, what's more important to you, and how do you balance those things professionally?
Well, I guess for me, you see value in like being creative and having that I guess job discovery, right? And that kind of, I guess, secures yourself. Like, you have some sort of job security in that as well. I'm just a little confused too at just the question itself. Like
Well, I think the question kind of, the reason why I put the question in there was, I think it comes back to, like, it kind of like wraps together a lot of stuff we talked about, right? Because you in order to do, all right, so let's just look quick answers. You get more excited by, like, doing the same thing, doing it really well, or do you get more excited about, like, surprising yourself? Jonny.
I think doing it really well.
Over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
How about you, Anthony?
The second part was surprising yourself. Like, elaborate.
Yeah, by the way, it doesn't mean okay. I've been running for the past 2 months. All right, it's like, and I'm a pretty obsessive person, so I get up every day at 4 o'clock and I run 5 miles every day. And I live my life by, like, metrics. So, like, my wife will ask me, "How'd you sleep last night?" And I go, "I don't know. Let me look at my watch." And she goes, "You need to look at your watch to see how you sleep." I go, "Yeah, I need to look at my sleep score, because, like, that's empirical data. Like, I don't know. I feel like I slept okay, but maybe I was tossing and turning all night." Like, and by the way, like, looking at my watch, like, removes the decision. Like, I try to remove all decision making from my life. Like, I don't like to decide. Like, anytime someone burdens me with a decision, like, "What do you want for dinner?" I don't know. "What are you making?" Like, I really try to make as few decisions as possible, because I feel like they burden me. And I like guardrails, because the more guardrails I have in life, the less I have to think about, which frees me to think about the things I want to think about. So I get up and I run every day, and my goal was not to get out and run. Like, I know I can run, but my goal is not to get out and run a 15-minute mile every day, right? Like, I don't ever want to run slower than a 15-minute mile. And I think I like to run, like, on average, a 12-minute mile, because I'm old and, like, try not to, like, pull anything. But if I run an 11-minute mile, I'm like, yes, like, that was awesome. If I run, like, a 10.5-minute mile, I'm like, yes. So, like, I do the same things, but I'm only, like, really excited when I'm surprised by the outcome. Like, if the outcome is always the same, I'm kind of like, I don't know. Like, why am I doing this? Like, I'm not getting any better at it. Like, I'm just doing the same thing every day, and, like, I don't feel like I'm getting any more output. So I think the question's kind of in that context. Like, it's not saying you don't do the same things to get better at it. It's saying, like, is there a shelf life to doing the same things every day, and, like, having the outcome never change? So in that context, is your answer the same, Jonny?
In that context, it would sound like I would do the same thing over and have no progress, do it better than I feel like I would want to be surprised.
Okay, all right. How about you, Anthony?
Yeah, I'm getting much better clarity on like kind of like what the question's asking, and like I I think definitely the surprising yourself, that aspect is much more preferred and probably what people should strive to do, because like in the beginning, when I first started, I was doing a very simplistic scripts, and then like working with maybe like a Python library, and then and then I worked with an API, and then I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. Like I used this person's code in Python, like, so yeah, like an API. And then like over time now, like comparing it to now, where I'm working with 3 different APIs all in one massive script, like organizing it in a different way than I did in the beginning. I have kept surprising myself over and over again at what I can achieve, and I think that's what everyone should do. And like it just means with that you'll continue to grow, and you'll be doing things you never even thought you could imagine to do.
Cool. How about you, Alex?
Yeah, I mean, going back to like knowing one thing and then improving from it, like how you were mentioning, like it was like 11-minute run you were talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it, like Anthony was saying, it's just surprising yourself. I'm sorry, the cat is just
No, it's all right.
driving. Okay, what was the question again? Because I'm not really sure.
No, you're good. You're good. You're good. I do want to follow up. Like, okay, so I think everyone agrees. Like, there's these 3 things that I think everyone. There's this great video. If you guys have never watched it, Google it. It's called the surprising truth about what motivates us. And it's a YouTube video. That's kind of like it's a quick drawing, and it was taken from a book called Drive, written by this guy Daniel Pink. And in the book he says, and you guys will enjoy it because it talks a lot about open source developers and why they're motivated. Like, how do you like go to work, do this crazy stuff that like solving these crazy problems, and then you give it all away for free? Like, that seems insane. But it all comes down to like there's 3 drivers in life, right? Autonomy, mastery, and purpose. Like, so, I'm a big, like, everyone wants to like, and I think where the Reed Hastings comment comes from is, if you think about job security can be tough to balance with autonomy. Like, it's like your bosses will often want you to do what they want you to do. That sort of removes autonomy, right? But you can regain your autonomy once you have mastery, right? Once you've mastered something, you can kind of come back and go, well, I really know this thing. I understand it better than everyone else. Like, just let me go, and like, I'll deliver, right? And that I think is a great thing. And then I think having a purpose, whether it's running a 1 mile a little faster or just getting a little more efficient in how you do things, right? Once you put those 3 things together, I think at the end of the day, that's how you feel good about coming to work every day, right? I mean, I've been doing this for 30 years. I've never left a job in my life because of money. It's just never happened. And I've had a few jobs. I left because I was either not being allowed to like practice mastery. I didn't feel like the work was purposeful, or like there was literally zero autonomy. And I think we live in a world right now where autonomy is flourishing, right? It's like everyone's working remote. Like, there is this massive autonomous aspect of, work today, the next version of work. But I think with that, there comes an insane uptick in mastery. Like, people expect you to be better, more efficient, more on your game. Like, because when you're not, you don't have that thing everyone rested on for years, which was just showing up, being 80% of the battle. Like, just showing up. Nobody shows up anymore. So like, it counts for nothing. That commute used to be the hardest part of people's day. doesn't exist anymore. So you've got to find something that's harder. So I think when you look at this, which was written like in 2007 or 9 or something like that, it's like, wow, it's even more, to me, it's an even more powerful thing today because you don't have the table stakes anymore, which is like putting your suit on, going to work, like being presentable, like all of those things are like, they don't even matter. Like used to be like, oh, you showered, you put a suit on, you combed your hair, you showed up on time. Like, wow, you've gotten like 50% of the day out of the way. So it's a different world. All right. So Jonny, what have you enjoyed the most so far, and what have you disliked?
I think everyone can say the same, but definitely the freedom. The freedom of remote work is really, it's probably the most enjoyable part. But I guess on the opposite end of that, it's also again missing out on like social opportunities. Just like even hearing about, like there's a location, like an area where other members get to meet up. It's like, oh, like wait, but I'm all the way over here, and I can't just like hop in my car and drive drive to the location and meet up either. So
Yeah.
definitely missing on those like little opportunities.
How about you, Anthony?
I would say I agree with that. When you're physically with people, there is that social aspect, that like analog communication and presence that really keeps you engaged. I would say is the downside, but then the upside is, really flexible. Like tomorrow I can, move across the country and it won't be affected. Like I can still do my work. I can still, work with my team, and like it's just like that kind of flexibility is really important too.
Yeah, I know you were in the office a couple weeks ago. Like what would you say like you got out of it that you don't get like every day when you're at home?
I think meeting people. I met so many people. I remember you introduced me to a lot of people, and just kind of like another thing too I noticed was when you're in that kind of environment, you get more of a sense of culture a lot faster than being remote, I would say as well. But I think naturally over time, regardless, you'll get a sense of that.
Okay, cool. I'm going to skip you, Alex, because you really have a basis yet for that for an answer to that question, I don't think.
Okay.
All right, but we'll start with you on the next one. How important is workplace culture?
I mean, for me, it is very important. It's harder to do it virtually, but from my own experience being in person at an office or call center or so on, just seeing what's around me, like whether it's a poster or plant or like a quote, I think it's very important because it sets a foundation of the company and also who is in that job for that specific reason, and being able to share yourself with others is very impactful. So I think it's very important, especially through emails when you talk about what the company stands for, and just like morals just in general. But yeah, that's kind of what I think about it. I think it's highly important, but you don't get a lot of that, I'd say, online, but we do our best to try to communicate that through.
How about you, Jonny?
Are we talking the context of like remote versus like an actual physical
I think
location workplace?
just in
Or
general, like
workplace in general?
how important is like workplace culture? Can you like is it really important to like having a good like waking up and feeling good about where you're going to work every day, and like, or can you survive in like a bad culture?
Mhm.
I think I mean, especially if you want it to be successful, then yeah, I'd say it's very important because I think even just like in the context of us three here, we're fairly new, and I think like it really sets a tone for us of like of what to expect, and like, and if like generally if I came in seeing like a pretty poor workplace culture, is very, I wouldn't want to like kind of like look, I wouldn't look forward to working there, you know. And so I think it definitely sets a huge example for us. And then even for just like long term, if like someone can only handle so much before they realize like, this isn't it for me. I'll just find a better location that has better workplace culture.
Yep. How about you, Anthony?
Yeah, going off of what you just said there, Johnny, at the end, like, if you are in a workplace and you're kind of like not 100% into the work culture, you're gonna try to go somewhere else. And you'll be a little more uncomfortable if you're not quite fitting in with it. Um, and you'll naturally just kind of go away from that culture. But when you find something really good and you agree with everything, and like the like just looking around at your coworkers and like really like working together well, and working together for like a common cause, I think that helps tremendously with your motivation, your discipline, your work ethic. I mean, I've been able to realize all this during my 8 months here, 9 months.
Cool. What are some like Anthony, what are some like key qualities of like a good workplace culture, do you think?
I think support is like number one. Just being able to know that I can reach out to one of my coworkers. I can reach out about anything that I'm having trouble with without feeling like I'm going to be ridiculed or like shamed for asking, a lot of questions or reaching out a lot. I think that's really important because it kind of, for me at least, gives me a sense of relief to know that I have such a huge amount of support to back me up. It makes me feel like I can do so much more. And so I will do more things, go out of my comfort zone a little bit, and that I think is a driver for those kinds of things, is the support.
How about you, Alex?
I agree with Anthony, to be honest. It's very important to feel like you have that kind of support, especially coming, for me, I'm LGBTQ plus. So trying to find even like a culture where you feel welcome or invited, it's a little difficult at times, because I have gone through interviews where I do ask, are you guys accepting of LGBTQ plus? And I hate asking that, but I have to. But when I did interview here, I felt welcome, and I can agree more. Support, definitely.
How about you, Jonny?
I agree with Anthony and Alex. So I like took the answer right out of my mouth. But I think another good one is just like open-mindedness. I think like it gives good opportunity for like newcomers like us to come in and like not only learn but also express what we believe is like are good changes or just good feedback. And like I think I think it's just a really important one.
Cool. Yeah, listen, I we all will spend the majority of our lives working, unfortunately. Kind of hard to do it if you don't feel safe.
Yeah.
You'll never be creative, right? So like there are very few people who succeed without failing, right? So when you feel incapable of failure, it becomes your velocity of success is far slower. It's not to say you can't succeed under some incredible oppressive regime. You can, but it's significantly more difficult, right? And I think the era we're living in like demands a high velocity, right? Like you can't, especially in tech, like you can't do things the way you did them 2 years ago. Like they don't matter. Like no one cares. So we have to like, if you're always pushing forward, it's hard to do that without accepting failure. And then, you got to be smart about it, right? So I think risk mitigation is it's a good trait because it you kind of say like, listen, I know I could fail. I was just listening to this podcast and it was what did it say? It was like 1 plus, I don't know. The premise of it was if you don't have some redundancy and a secondary plan, you kind of have nothing. Like one of something is nothing. Because it will fail. It's not like if, it's when, right? So the idea is you're supposed to plan for failure and always have a backup plan. And often that backup plan when you're moving at a high rate of speed is a team, right? Like you wouldn't go into battle with an army of one, right? You have a team. Like, and if you don't feel like you're part of that team, hopefully you always find yourself in peacetime, but very few people find themselves there all the time. So yeah, I think that's great feedback. All right, last question. Jonny, what motivates you?
Just getting things to work. I think like we can all agree here that once we like work on like big projects and codes that that once you reach the point where like you put all these complex things together and it just like works as expected is like a huge part of like my motivation, just getting it to that point. Yeah.
How about you, Anthony?
I 100% agree. Is like like, you know, I've done that since AP Comp Sci in high school. Like when I ran the code and it generated the output I was expecting or did whatever I designed it to do, and it did it. It's just such a satisfying feeling, and it makes me want to keep doing that more. Yeah, I'm 100% in agreement with you, Jonny.
How about you, Alex?
I couldn't agree more. I mean, just getting something to work is an accomplishment in itself, but going through the struggle and having difficulty solving something for a very long time, what motivates me is knowing that if I were to complete this, I will be very proud of it, number one, but number two, I can showcase that. And coding is it's kind of limitless. And there's a lot you can do with it, of course. And so what really motivates me is being able to do whatever I want with it, being able to, if I want to create a video game, if I want to create something that's going to be beneficial for other people. Yeah.
Cool. All right, I said it was the last question, but you guys prompted my thought process here. So if you're motivated by like building great stuff, and then hitting the button, and watching it run and do what it's supposed to do, clearly you're satisfied by getting the output that you want. But are you ever really satisfied? Like, do you not think it could have been a little better? We'll start with you, Jonny.
We're just go back to the pythonic thing again over again, and absolutely like I've 100% been in that scenario, and it has become like my like you know, like when people ask you about like what are your worst, or when interviewers ask you like what is your worst trait, and I'm like, I think that's the trait. Like it helps me like be really like efficient with certain things, but then it reaches a point where like I spend like this a super long amount of time on it just so I can get like this 2% one liner working, you know. But yeah.
How about you, Anthony?
Yeah, that's the first thing I think of even after it is like, oh, like I wonder if I could have, if this is more efficient, or if I could have saved more time if I did it this way. I was actually last night when I was reviewing the code just before I ran it, there was a situation where there was an if else like logic that was happening in one of the methods that I designed, and then in another method they were both doing the same, like this little snippet of code was doing the same thing, but in a different way. And the original one had the if else, but then the other one had a try catch. And I didn't intuitively know, oh, Python try catch is more efficient than if else in this situation. Like I didn't know that, but it got me thinking, like, I wonder which one is better. I wonder which one is more readable. And I wanted to keep going in and making it the code more elegant. But I knew after it ran, I was satisfied. But, there's a point where, it did its job. You can, if you want, you could keep going and make it more elegant. But that's just where I go, is like, oh, I just want to make it more elegant. But I think learning how to like let it go and document it and call it a day and move on. You're never going to grow if you stay with one thing and you stay with one script and you try to make it as elegant as possible. You have to keep moving forward so that you could do bigger and better things.
You need new art.
Can I just
Yep.
add that, like,
Yeah,
I'd be
go ahead.
scared for the day that we add like actual benchmarks and empirical data to how quickly our code runs. Like that, I'm gonna get stuck on that for a long time. It's like, oh wait, I can like this type of library does this even faster, So let's add this and try this out and rerun,
Yeah.
get these numbers, and it's like, oh man.
Yeah, but listen, I'm like a obsessive person. Like, God forbid someone spills something in my house. Like, I will rub the leather off the sofa. Like, that's how insane I am. Like I can't stop myself. My wife is like, enough. Like, you're gonna like and usually she's right. Like I do more damage than was done by the original spill.
Still.
But I just can't help myself. And then I'm like, so the great part about, like, if you take that sort of mentality, which I have, and you really can't mess up on a computer. Like, you're not hurting anyone. Like, when it's a physical thing, you end up like really hurting it. Like, you're like, why did I do this? I should have stopped like 20 minutes ago. Like, I'm way over rotated on this. I've got too much time invested. The situation is 50 times worse. Like, so I think some of this stuff is like, it's interesting because there are certain personality traits that gravitate people to this field. And those personality traits don't usually start and stop when you sit down at a computer and get up from a computer. They usually carry all the way through to every other aspect of your life, and all of your loved ones will have to deal with that their entire life. And it's not pleasant for most people. So that's why I think culture is so important, because, getting around, you spend a lot of time with other people, getting around people who kind of get you without having to really dig in. And they, like, I kind of knew without asking that there's no way you guys are not like walking away from the computer going, I wonder if I could have done that a little better. Or like, you're not like, you're not out somewhere. And I'm not saying this is a regular occurrence, but you're not out somewhere staring off into space thinking about something that has nothing to do with what you're doing at that particular time, going, I think I got it. Like, I need to get back in front of the computer at some point so I can remember how to do this. Or or take a note like on your phone, going, I gotta jot this down. Yeah. Like, but those are the traits of what make us good at this job. Right? How about you, Alex? What motivates you? Same thing as everyone else?
Yeah, I mean, when we were talking about when you finish something, are you satisfied or what? I get the relief of, yes, I did it. It's amazing, great. But then I'll start rereading my code, and then I think about what I can do to change it and make it cleaner and better. And maybe I should add less comments, or maybe I should add this to like a struct or a different class or something. And I look at like the efficiency and everything, and it just, like Anthony said, at some point you need to stop and you need to move on. That's something I've struggled with. Even today, just practicing stuff, I was trying to perfect it, trying to make it work easier, less code, less lines of code. It's hard, but it's tricky because it's something that when you're passionate about something, you get it done, but then you just want to make it better. You're trying to make it more robust. So I think of every edge case possible. I nitpick at it. I throw in whatever I can to try to get some kind of error. And even when it comes to like when the console spits out an error and you're making the print statement for it, like, oh, did I word this nicely? Maybe I should use different terminology. Maybe I shouldn't use anything. I don't know. I just start getting picky with it. But what motivates me with it is that at some point it does the job right and it's good to go, and that should be enough. And got to move on and learn more.
Yeah, and I think it's like anything in life. There's you have different evolutions of your craft, right? Like I've been couch potatoing for like a year and a half and just felt like garbage and was like, I gotta get up and like do something. So like the evolution of my getting some exercise was just getting myself up every day early, getting out of the house. Like I didn't care if it took me 2 hours. Like I just had a goal, like get 5 miles in. Like the first time I went out and did it, it took me an hour and 45 minutes to walk 5 miles. Like felt like forever. But like then the next hurdle the next day was just getting out of bed and doing it again. Knowing it was probably going to take me an hour and 45 minutes. But, you know, when you do stuff, you get better at it and your velocity gets better and, you know, you just get better at things. So I think different evolutions, like right now, I think we're in a point where we want like volume, right? It's like you're trading maybe some elegance for volume, right? Like how much work can I kick out? So maybe the measure of success is like how many Git commits do I have? Like 2 different projects, not the same project, right? Like I think if you saw like 5,000 Git commits to one project, you'd be like, what are we doing with the other 50 projects? Like, so I think there are, but then at some point you'll hit a point of like where there aren't that many new projects, and then at that point maybe it's more about just getting more elegant, right? Where maybe it becomes easy to run 5 miles like in an hour, and now it's like really I got to change the game up a little bit. Maybe now I want to do a 6-minute mile, but I'm not going to run 5 6-minute miles. I'm only going to run 1 6-minute mile. So then I think you start to change about how you think about things, right? And I think some of that like repetitive elegance, and well, I think we'll get there at some point, is like not having this one person kind of end-to-end project methodology where one person, because then you lack diversity of thought, right? You can look at the same piece of code every day and like be scratching your head going, I don't know, like what am I going to do? Like I've done everything I could do with this, and then somebody else can look at it for 2 minutes and go, oh, you know, you could do this, because they have a different perspective on it. So I think at some point we'll get to the point where we start to move things through the pipeline a little bit differently, you know, start to break problems up even smaller, right? Start to build more libraries, and then have other people look at those things so that we can get different perspective. And then that perspective, I think, will help us build more efficiency. Because I think that's like one person can only build so much efficiency, because it's what's efficient in our head, not what's necessarily the most efficient. But yeah, it's been great. It's been great getting to know you guys, and I appreciate you jumping on. And I hope it was fun for you. I know it was for me.
It was, yeah.
And it's always cool, and I think it'll be great for everyone on the team to kind of get to meet you guys and kind of answer some of the questions. And it's always fun, I think, for other people who watch, which our viewership's about 3 people. So you don't have to worry that this video will end up somewhere in Eastern Europe with, you know, different heads on your faces. Nobody will be deep faking us.
Making a meme out of us either.
Yeah. We're safe. We're safe. All right, but have a great weekend, and again, thanks for taking the time.
Thank you
You
for
too.
inviting
Thanks
us.
for having us.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Weekend.
Thanks, guys. All right,
Bye, guys.
bye-bye.
Bye.